Hey guys, it's me KSMR here, and today I'm going to be reading an Oikawa Tooru Oikawa. This one is titled Come On, Let Go, and this is a fluff fic, so you don't have to worry about the angst. I know I always post Oikawa angst stories, but here's a fluff to make up for all the angst stories that I post for him. I don't have anything else to say, so yeah, without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Hello. He greeted you with a smile, his charisma indulging you instantly as he grabbed your hand. You must be new. I'm Tooru Oikawa. And you are? You could feel how tense you were as you were holding his hand, the feeling of how soft it wrapped around your own. With a kind smile, he spoke once again. Don't be scared. We don't bite around here. It was supposed to be a playful sentence, or that's why it was followed by a gleeful laugh. You weren't scared. As a matter of fact, you were hesitant. Hesitant of what exactly? You weren't quite sure. But as you gazed into those deep chocolate eyes, you found yourself getting lost in them, like a field of blooming flowers in the morning of the spring. You wanted to get lost, but you knew that you couldn't. You shouldn't. Despite his friendly personality, he was bad news. Did you listen to yourself? I'm first name, last name, he said with a smile. Of course you didn't. Time skip. As the rain poured down from above, all you could do was hold your hand underneath the roof of the school's entrance. You didn't bring an umbrella today. You didn't know it would rain in the first place, so you turned to the idea of waiting it out. The skies were a dark shade of gray, cracks of white in between them as the clouds cried out. You frowned, or you sighed, a frown molding your lips. Rain had always been comforting to you. Hearing the thunder roar in the distance, it brought you a sense of calmness. As the water puddled into your palm, the outer sleep of your uniform dampened, the shadow of the rainwater slowly climbing its way up. Oh, hey. And just like that, the sense of comfort you were feeling bubbling inside of you is gone. You were now filled with this giddy feeling that made your fingers tingle as you looked at who had called you. He had the same goofy smile on his face as he waved at you, an umbrella tucked underneath his hand while he had his bag hanging off of his shoulder. Although the skies were dark, he shined brightly as he made his way towards you. There was something about him, something about Tooru Oikawa that made it impossible to hate him. Not that you wanted to hate him in the first place. He stood beside you, noticing your outstretched hand before doing the same. What are you doing? You asked him, watching as the same little puddle formed in the center of his hand as it did yours. He hummed. You were doing it, so I thought I'd give it a go too, he replied, feeling the cool water on his palm. No words were spoken in that short moment. Just you and Oikawa holding your hand out for the rain. You smiled. It was almost as if the both of you wanted to hold hands with the rain. His presence beside you made you feel giddy, the kind of giddy that makes you want to jump and twirl around. Only he had that effect on you. Only Tooru Oikawa. The rain doesn't look like it's dying down soon, he finally said, looking back at you. You sighed once more, turning your hand down, watching as the water splashed onto the ground and merging with the water below. I win, he smiled, before dumping his water down too. You smiled. Yeah, I'll make a run for it. He opened his umbrella, walking out into the rain without being drenched. He looked back at you, holding his hand out. Here, let me take you home. That night, you laid on your bed, listening to the rain as it crashed down against the roof. All you could think about was Oikawa and his stupid grin. The rain that once reminded you of comfort, now reminded you of Oikawa. Comfort? Oikawa? Weren't that the same thing? Time skip. The first snow fell from the sky as you looked out from your window of the classroom, or as you looked out from the window in the classroom. With your elbow propped against the table, you rested your chin on the back of your hand. As soon as your eyes followed this small white flake, many twirled down from in a soft, slow way. You humped to yourself, mentally praising yourself for bringing a coat earlier in the morning. The final bell rang, making you look up towards the teacher as they were putting their textbooks away. You stretched your arms into the air, leaning back onto your chair. Something warm wrapped itself around your hands, as a familiar face looked down on you with that same gentle smile that you've seen since day one. "Hello," Oikawa greeted, leaning down towards your face as his hands were still wrapped in yours. You blushed at how close his lips got to your forehead, practically ghosting above it. No matter how many times you would encounter Oikawa, he still gives you butterflies and always made your cheeks flare. Oikawa wasn't just a person. He was also a feeling. The feeling of comfort, or the feeling of coming home after a long day. The feeling of coming home to the same person, but even after all those years of being with them, they still feel like a new experience. The feeling of not knowing where you belong, but when he starts walking in, he shows you where you stand, beside him, in his heart. He chuckled. "I have practice today, and I was wondering if you'd come by." "Why?" "No reason. He just wanted to see you." You sat up straight, careful not to hit his chin as you did so. You looked back at him, seeing him sit down on the desk behind you as he waited for your answer. You sighed in defeat. Fine, I will." A triumphant smile appeared on his lips, adding more glow to his eyes. "Nice. I really thought you would say no, and, could you..." You watched as he took his jacket off, draping it over your shoulders. You blushed and as he zipped it up all the way to your lips, his thumb grazing against your lower lip. "Wear this for me? You look cold." The feeling of Oikawa's jacket around you, his scent was floating in the air, and it made the arms that were wrapped around your body, and it felt like arms were wrapped around your body. You felt safe. Oikawa watched as the blush on your face rose up to the tip of your ears. "You're adorable. Has anyone ever told you that?" You've heard compliments from other people, but whenever he complimented you, it was as if you were hearing it for the first time. You looked up. "Thank you." He tilted his head to the side. "For what? Letting you wear my jacket?" You shook your head. Oikawa felt his heartstrings getting tugged as you huffed out your cheeks. "For calling me cute." "Oh, I was just stating the obvious." Once again, Oikawa made you feel like it was the first morning of spring all over again. Time skip. You heard about Oikawa and how powerful he is in volleyball, but you'd never actually seen him play. As you watched from the second floor, observing how quick he was in his practice game that he had with the college department, you found yourself holding your breath as he spiked the ball, the sound of the forceful slap resonating throughout the gym over the squeals of his fangirls. They scored another point again. His teammates for the day gave him a pat on the back and they high-fived him. They were right. He was amazing. The lights were shining down on him, and it made him stand out even more, almost as if he was glowing within the crowd. As he rubbed the sweat off of his forehead, using the back of his hand, he looked up to where you were standing. You weren't really that hard to miss, mostly because you were wearing his bright jacket. No, it was so much more than that. Although you were the brightest star scattered throughout the dark sky, you were stunning to say the least, and Oikawa found you intriguing. A part of him wants to stay with you, while the other part wants him to keep pestering you while the other keeps on pestering him to not get attached. He should have listened, but the way he looked up there with his jacket on, it made his heart swell. To Oikawa, you were like the fresh air he breathed on a spring day. Time skip. Your eyes widened at the sight of your mom practically gushing over Oikawa as he stood at the door, eager to reply to whatever questions she threw at him. YN, she acknowledged you after a minute, making you chuckle as you slid your shoes on. You didn't tell me Tooru was this handsome. You let out a hum, agreeing with what she said, and Oikawa blushed. Thank you, ma'am, he replied curtly, rubbing the back of his head. Before she could pester him even more, you grabbed his wrist and pulled him out of the house. You'd already be at the end of the road by the time your mom shouts, "Be back at 10 p.m. Today was an ordinary day, but somehow it was different. Oikawa told you needed help with one of the subjects, which was a lie. Oikawa was smart, logistically and intellectually. He just wanted to spend more time with you. Although, he wouldn't say that directly. Alright, he pulled out his phone from the back of his pocket, or from his back pocket, stopping at the bus stop. Do you think we should stop by a cafe I really like? Or do you think we could stop by this cafe I really like? He asked, eyes flickering from his screen to your face. He'd be lying if he said he didn't find you cute. You looked incredibly gorgeous as you were standing in front of him. He smiled. Sure, I don't mind. But you should have. Somehow the lines of 5 more minutes and we'll be there, and do you like donuts? You found yourself walking through the park with Oikawa behind you. He got his hands on his shoulders as you listened to what he was talking about. Technically, I'm being taken away from my family to go on an adventure with you. You laugh, watching as the sunlight shines over the park, or the water in the park's water fountain. Oikawa gasped. No, that's not true, he huffed. You did say yes to this. To me tutoring you at a subject you already know, mister. You looked back at him as you had felt him squeeze your shoulders. His flustered cheeks glowed underneath the sun's light, making you giggle. You don't know that. He tried to argue, but you rolled your eyes. With a smile, you turned around to look at Oikawa. Oikawa, you're the smartest guy I know. I know, you could have just asked me out on a date, like a regular person. Silence. The sound of the leaves ruffling in the wind passed by, and birds chirping in the distance was all you could hear. No, you couldn't hear how fast his heartbeat was racing as he stared into your eyes. Would you say yes if I did? Would you? Of course. And as the flowers blossomed in the fields, Oikawa's heart fluttered with joy. You stand in front of him, and he's feeling something that he hasn't felt in a while. It feels scary, it feels new, but he's with you. He wants to try new things with you. You, the feeling of a spring day. Time skip. The crowd cheers as Abijosai wins a match once more. You clapped your hands together as Oikawa turned his hand towards you, towards the crowd, shooting them a big smile. Kunumi was the first to walk out of the gymnasium and directly into the washroom to freshen up. Before he did, you managed to congratulate him, to which he responded with a soft thank you. The third years were already walking out when Maki had spotted you waiting at the doorway. Like every other match they had, you were wearing Oikawa's jacket. You wore it with pride whenever you would arrive to a match. Hey, it's Oikawa's girl, Maki exclaimed, waving his hand at you. You walked towards them, smiling widely as you waved back. Matsune patted his head as they had passed by, Oizumi winking at you before pointing back. I think he's still in there, he said as he wiped the sweat off of his forehead. He said that he had to do autographs or whatever. He finished with a roll of his eyes. You chuckled, thanking them and congratulating them over their win. You walked inside, seeing that most of the people had already left the gymnasium after the match had finished. You looked around, squinting your eyes at the bright lights above you, your shoes squeaking as you had stepped onto the court, trying to find Oikawa. But the moment you looked towards the seats, you wished that you had never even met him. He was smiling widely at someone. A girl. No, wait. Your heart dropped. It was his ex. She said something, probably something about the match, and you had saw how his cheeks flared up. Her hand was grazed over his forearm, and the look that she gives him made you want to throw up. He looked so happy, so full of life. As she smiled along with him, you wanted to shout, but you couldn't. It was never official. The both of you never were official, but did that matter? As you stand there, the bright lights turning off one by one, Oikawa leaned in to kiss her on the cheek as she hugged him. His hands rest on her lower back and his chin upon her shoulder. You unzipped your jacket, taking it off as you had left it on the floor. Oikawa had pulled away from her and looked towards the court. That's when he had saw his jacket laying upon the glossy floor. He felt it. The cold despite having her on his arm. The warmth that didn't have the same effect like it did before. Winter had arrived. Time skip. It didn't feel right. Oikawa had her back, and that's what he wanted from the start. But it just didn't feel right. As he had looked at her while she was cooking dinner, he couldn't help but feel heavy. He was missing something. Fuck that. He was missing you. Christmas break had started after their match, and he hadn't heard from you. And he still hadn't heard from you. You managed to cut yourself off, and he was worried. He tried everything. Calling you several times, spamming you with texts, and even asking Owaizumi where you were. Although Owaizumi never broke after how many times his best friend had tried to get him to say something. He was worried. As he sat on the couch, he sighed. He sighed before you knew it, because he knew it. It was all because of him, wasn't it? It was his fault that you had left. He knew it. It's the reason that he's up every night. It was wrong, but as he laid in someone else's arms, he could only dream of you. His spring love, the epitome of warmth and love. Here you go, she said, handing him his cup of hot chocolate. As he looked at her, he could only imagine it was you. Thanks. God, how he wishes that was you. Time skip. Didn't you hear? Maki asked, seeing Oikawa lean against your locker where you had kept your indoor shoes. Hear what? She's leaving today. Oikawa froze, suddenly lifting his head towards his friends. Matsun and Maki were taking off their shoes as the brunette took in what he had just heard. Leaving? For what? Oikawa had clenched his hands into a fist. Matsun clicked his tongue. Well, Owaizumi told us that her dad managed to get a job abroad, so... Oikawa ran. He ran so fast that day, and he was thankful for the stamina he'd built up because of his sport. Where was he going? He didn't know. He just needed to see you. He dashed towards your house, tripping over the sidewalk while trying to reach you. While he stood outside the front of your door, holding his hand, trying to knock it. The door opened and you stood there, with the box in your hands. A surprised look plastered itself all over your face, seeing him standing there with his fist raised in the air and shredded exhales releasing from his lungs. Oikawa? If he could, he would have melted right then and there by the sound of his name leaving your mouth. He gulped the lump that was forming down in his throat. Hi, he breathed out, holding onto the doorframe as he tried to catch his breath. Your lips had kinked up to the sides. It was It was almost as if the sun was peeking through the clouds after a storm. So warm and comforting. Are you okay? Is he? He was going to lose you the moment that you walked out of that door. Oikawa grabbed the box from her hands, placing it down onto the porch. Placing his hands on her shoulder, he shook his head. He replied in a soft voice, "No, not when you're going away." It was silly, you thought. You knew that he was bad news from the start. But the way he was holding on to you, he was grasping onto something that was slowly slipping away from him, and he didn't want to let go. But he needed to let go. Sitting on the sidewalk while clouds floated by, Oikawa had placed his hand in yours, afraid to let go. It was almost as if it was a lifeline for him. Behind the clouds, the sky was a vibrant blue color, and the sun was waving hello to him. It was the perfect weather for you to be laying on the ground with you, only with you. I'm never gonna see you again, am I? Bittersweet. That's what he had felt when he saw your eyes staring directly back at him. You always thought about getting lost in his. You always thought about getting lost in his, but now he wanted to get lost in yours. I'm sorry, was all you replied, feeling him squeeze your hand in a gentle manner. He sighed and smiled. You're sorry for what? If anyone should be sorry, it's me, Oikawa said, running his thumb over your knuckles. I was so selfish to the point where I just wanted to be happy and ended up ending it for myself. But I realized. He placed a hand on her cheek. You're the happy ending I've always wanted. He let out a soft laugh, shaking its way into his fragile heart. This isn't where it ends, Oikawa. He knew that, but he wasn't ready to accept it. As the sun had fully emerged from being kept behind the clouds, shining down into your skin, Oikawa thought you were the most beautiful person he had ever seen. Please, stay. But I can't. And that was the harsh reality that he had to live in. Despite being under the sun, a symbol of being happy and alive, he had felt like his heart was in a raging snowstorm, chaotic and frigid as he slowly let his hand slip away from yours. Come on, let's go. Oikawa hadn't left winter that day when he had saw you waving back at him as the car you were in slowly shrunk out of his vision. Time skip. The cafe was busy as you took a seat down at the window, rubbing your forehead as you typed down an article in your laptop that was resting on your lap. The savors of freshly brewed coffee flooded your senses, dragging you into full consciousness despite having only an hour of sleep. With a sigh, you looked out of the window. Argentina was a lovely city, full of lights and life. The atmosphere was most definitely warmer than it was in Japan, but it grew on you. You yawned, grabbing a cup of coffee from the table. I wonder how he's doing. Excuse me. You looked back and your heart nearly leaped out of your ribcage. Is the seat taken? Oikawa smiled widely at you, his molasses brown eyes shining in the sunset from outside. You laughed, a dissolute memory that Oikawa longed to hear. You shook your head and Oikawa took a seat beside you. Spring, a reason for new beginnings and new hope. Or a season that Oikawa reminded you as he smiled widely at you. Oikawa Tooru was your spring, your new beginning. Finally, the happy ending you wanted. Aww, that was nice. I didn't really like that whole him using me to get with his ex, but at least he realized that I'm infinitely better than her because of course I am. Who else would be better than me? Nobody. He has to realize why Anna's superior. I thought he would realize that, but I guess not. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and if you did, make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell. Thank you. I posted a fluff video for Oikawa, guys. Be happy, appreciate that, because you don't know if you're gonna get another one. You don't. And that's just the colder truth, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me try to slow down a little bit. Maybe not. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. And if you did, make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell so you get notified every single time I post a video. And also like the video, does something for the back. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.